So which are the newer areas that are going to be working in that area? I think these are very interesting developments. If you go to any of the incubation centers, you find that there are some interesting ideas that are floating around.
Fair enough. The debate on whether some of these are emperor wearing clothes or not is a topic for another day. Yeah. Babu Krishnamurthy asked this question. TCS recently announced a 50 billion plan by 2030. The goal was found to be very modest. I don't know, 8 to 9% growth rate. It seems like a very modest one. So, as you were the CFO, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I totally agree that it's a modest one, because I told that to Rajesh as well, that the 50 billion looks very attractive number and so on, because there isn't really many global companies at that kind of level. But as the person says, it's an incremental growth. You know, you're talking about 8. But the problem with the 8% growth, which is the problem that companies face, is that TCS has to add incrementally $2 billion a year at 8% growth. Immediate. When it gets to 35 billion, it has to add $3 billion incremental growth. It's not easy. You know, you are creating many companies in 1 year. You know, this was the issue that we used to debate in 2005 when we were growing as to what is that incremental. These percentages are all meaningless. What is that incremental amount that you have got to do? And how do you keep growing and so on? So, you know, when you think of that, it is not that easy, but what is the extra thing that you've got to be doing? Of course, when Rajesh said 2030, I'm sure Chandra was not impressed, because Chandra is more aggressive. And so I'm sure he has given him a goal which is earlier than 2030, but I don't want to get into those kinds of issues and so on. But it's not also a simple problem. It's a difficult one.
Yeah. No, I was just looking at the denominator is such a high number.
Yeah.
So any percentage of that is significant, right? Srini, how much time do we have?
5 minutes. Any questions?
So I have a couple of more questions of people who took trouble to send it. So I think we should do justice to that first.
10, 15 minutes.
Is that? Yeah? So a couple of questions that came ahead of the audience here, so I think we should give them a chance. So one of them is sustainability is going to be the next big challenge for organizations, and especially IT services, and we keep talking about, services pivoting to product play in our industry much more than any other one. So what do you see as in the crystal ball in terms of, especially because of cost arbitrage as a platform on which most of the initial momentum was built, may also be a little fading away?
I think cost arbitrage is more or less dead, for the simple reason that Accenture also plays the same cost arbitrage. Gemini plays the same cost arbitrage, because they are global companies which have significant presence in India and so on. So I don't think, there is, if you're talking about people creating huge centers in the United States, and that's not the game anymore. It's a global game, and I would choose Philippines if I want to do something, or choose India, or choose some other place and so on. China, unfortunately, has not really moved up, or fortunately moved up in this area at all. So we are essentially this thing, and therefore from even now when TCS or any other organization thinks about it, it doesn't think about cost arbitrage from a national perspective. It talks about the arbitrage, if at all you have, between the competitive scenario perspective. That's the only thing. The broader question is, what are the new engines of growth? You talked about this product as a new engine of growth. Why are we not in products? I mean, this has been the central question that has always been, why is it only services and so on? But, if you really look at the world, where are products getting developed? Where are the ideas that are getting developed? There is only one country which has monopoly in that, and that is the United States of America. Because even in the UK, in spite of whatever they are saying, ARM is something that everyone wants to buy and so on, and the UK government comes in and says that, no, I don't want this to be sold and all that, that kind. There is no other, and therefore there are two main reasons. One is, of course, the ecosystem. If you go to Silicon Valley, you've got everything. You've got the entrepreneurs, you've got phenomenal technology, academic institutions which create that, and you've got the financiers. And more importantly, you've got the users very close to where they are and so on, who are driving them towards this thing. And that, I think, that's why I gave this passport as an example. That's why I gave payment system as an example and so on. I think India is becoming a very major user this thing. And therefore, I see that many of the, and that is where, from a fintech perspective and so on, many of these organizations will come up. So I think there is possibility, but unless we solve that particular problem in terms of users and so on, you will still have only the United States leading the way at this time.
That question, by the way, was from Krishna Nagarajan. One last one which came in ahead of today's meeting was from Swaminathan, Rotarian Swaminathan. He was a Tata family member. With TCS spread globally so much, and with over maybe right now 450,000 employees or whatever, huge number. Yeah. Employees are important stakeholders. How do you manage this on an ongoing basis without any issue being debated in public?
Without any issue being debated where?
In public.
Public. Even from a human resources angle.
Yes.
There's always people come in different shapes and services, sizes and so on. And more importantly, now we are getting to be, TCS and many other organizations are getting to be global in workforce kind of this thing, because movement of people in any case was never a sustainable proposition. Because you would get backlashes from any country. You can't ship 100,000 people to one country and expect that you're going to be received, except in this Ukraine type of situation where there could be refugees, but you can't really do that. And therefore, there is going to be a backlash, and everyone has ended up developing their centers with locally. They might be of Indian origin, but they are local people with the local work permits and all that kind of thing that's available and so on, but substantial. And therefore, you're dealing with different cultures. When I go to South America, years back now, of course, and the meetings would be conducted in Spanish or Portuguese. And of course, because someone from India is sitting, there will be translation that will be supplied and so on, but general meetings and so on. So you're dealing with different languages, different cultures, and all that kind of thing. And therefore, the HR establishment has to be very important. So one of the things that we experimented with, and I'm not going to give a very detailed answer on that, is that I was the first one to become an HR head of TCS without being an HR person. Prior to me were professionals who were graduates of TISs and all that kind of thing. But Mr. Kohli initially gave me training and thereafter education, and thereafter he made me. I used to sit in Chennai, but used to perform the role of HR and so on. I was succeeded by S. Padmanabhan, who was another business person who moved in. He was succeeded by Ajay Mukherjee, who was another business person who moved in. And his current HR head is a person called Milind Ramalakad, who used to manage a business area himself. I think what we have done is we have understood the HR issues from different perspectives, from working with them, from understanding it and so on. Although we have a lot of HR professionals within the organization, I think we have tried to bring that dimension of looking after people, not as HR, but as truly a resource that we need to work on. And probably that's one of the reasons why there have been not many.
Thank you so much. We now have time for 2 questions on the floor, and we'll start with Maddie Madhavan, TVS Tires.